Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us this morning. I met a few Red Sox fans here in the room. I'm surprised they're up this early, but they're happy, and they're probably headed to the ALCS based on that performance last night. A lot of fun at Universal. I know for this team, not too much fun because you were able to make the 8 o'clock session. So we have a 90-minute opportunity to share with our customers and our partners the work that Verizon is doing to enable new solutions and capabilities to make first responders more effective, more productive, and safer, to enable them to do their jobs better in the support of their communities. Before I start, I want to introduce to you the folks on my left, and we'll have an opportunity throughout the presentation to do Q&A. I've got a set of questions that we're going to ask the panel that we think are relevant based on what we know you're interested in, and then certainly we'll open it up to questions for here in the room. Based on the invitation that you received with my picture on it from 15 years ago, you know I've been working at this. I've been working at this segment for quite a while. My name is Mike Majorana, and I'm privileged to be the senior leader at Verizon, responsible for our public sector practice across federal, state, local, and public safety. We've got a heritage and a credo at Verizon as it relates to delivering you the products and services that you need to do your jobs well, backed by amazing people that get the work done and act with significant urgency and accountability. And, you know, while we don't have a new federal contract to offer public safety services, we've never really needed one because over the last 3 decades, Verizon has delivered the network, the technology, and the support to earn a significant portion of the public safety first responder business. And while we have a beautiful trade show and we're doing terrific commercials and our website looks wonderful, it's not the marketing hype or the promises of what will or may happen in the future that has earned this business for Verizon, has really earned your trust. It's delivering on our commitments, and our past performance, I think, is very indicative of the way we'll support you headed into the future. So let me introduce, or have the panel to my left introduce themselves, and we'll get on with the show. Brett?
I'm Brett Raley. I'm the retired police chief of the Winter Park Police Department here in Florida. After serving 39 years in the business, I retired 2 years ago. I now teach around the country in management and highway safety topics, and I consult for the Digital Decision. My last year as police chief, I was president of the Florida Police Chiefs Association.
Thanks. Good morning. I'm Nick Nyland. I'm the Director of Public Sector Product Strategy at Verizon.
Good morning. I'm Anna Osa. I am an Associate Director of Wireless Products, and my team is responsible for public safety products that we have in market today and what we'll bring to you soon.
Thank you all. My name is Bob Clemmy. I've been managing the Verizon Wireless Business Continuity Program for the past 15 years and happy to be helping support the company's reliability as we move forward through these disastrous events.
And knowing that Hurricane Michael's on its way, we got to get you out of here quick.
The team's got it.
Although we've got a pretty good team on the ground that, and Bob will talk to that specifically later today, the work that Verizon does to support our communities, to prepare our networks, but also to supplement our networks when major storms like Florence and now Michael come up. So I want to start with a video, give you a little background about our commitment to the business, and then I'll start my presentation. Public safety needs to know that Verizon has their back. Our public safety customers have come to depend on the coverage, the reliability, the capacity on that network. Nowhere else does better matter more than serving our public safety and first responder community.
Supporting public safety and those who support our communities is part of our DNA. And we believe that helping to restore communications is vitally important in helping to restore normalcy to our communities.
Verizon has a crisis response team available 24/7 to ensure law enforcement and public safety have the network access and support that they need.
Public safety officials run to a crisis. Verizon runs to a crisis.
Verizon, they're just helping people. Communication is the most important thing in any relief effort.
We don't begin thinking about network reliability when an emergency happens. We prepare year-round. We engage in disaster recovery drills internally and hold live crisis response exercises alongside first responders. We pre-stage emergency equipment, including mobile cell sites on wheels and mobile generators and other equipment, and we know that communication is critical, especially during emergencies.
The ability of the carrier to get that back into service using portable systems is incredibly important to us.
Without question, Verizon has long been our top corporate partner among many others. We could not do this work without them.
We have granted the Memorial Fund a large sum of money, which is helping to build the very first National Law Enforcement Museum, which is right across the street here from the memorial. We also support the families of the fallen officers through the Verizon Fallen Officer Fund. And this helps them get through the initial hurdles of dealing with such a personal tragedy.
And they need that support greatly, and Verizon is to be lauded, commended for what they're doing to support the surviving family members of officers killed in the line of duty. They clearly care about law enforcement and the profession, the service, the sacrifice. We value highly the support we get from Verizon.
We have the dedicated people, the resources, and the partner ecosystem to serve public safety now and well into the future.
It's a smile on everyone's face when you can pick up your phone and everything works.
Let me give a little plug to Craig Floyd, who is the leader for the National Law Enforcement Memorial and now Museum, opening up in Washington, D.C. this Friday. Verizon is a proud partner of the National Law Enforcement Memorial and now Museum, and we will have a theater named for Verizon and be looking forward to helping increase the experience of all the visitors that we expect in Washington. So when you are in Washington and you're headed out on the museum tour, please make the National Law Enforcement Museum one of your stops. Okay, we're going to give you a good overview of what we are up to and why we are still winning in this segment. What Verizon is doing specifically to deliver your first responders with better capabilities, better performance, to better serve their communities. We're going to talk about some of the new products and services that we have launched and what we will continue to work on to launch later this year. And we're going to bring to you some exciting news about partners that we've established. It's interesting when you come to an event like IACP, it gives you a great opportunity to connect with your customers and continue the long-standing trusted relationship that we have. But it's also a terrific opportunity to work with other companies that want to deliver great capabilities using the Verizon network and knowing how much Verizon has as it relates to the market share that we are privileged to serve here in this segment. I want to talk to you a little bit about interoperability as well as what's happening with 5G. You may know that Indianapolis, Houston, Sacramento, and Los Angeles, Verizon was pleased to launch earlier this month the first 4 commercial markets in the U.S. With 5G capabilities. Whenever I meet with police chiefs or mayors or governors or, quite frankly, any first responder, the tech talk sometimes is the last thing that we get to. The bits and bytes and the features and functionality are, quite frankly, interesting, but it really does boil down to how does that police officer use the technology in his or her hand or in his or her car to be able to be more productive, more effective, more efficient, to be safer for themselves as well as be in a position to protect others in the community. We know that the communications device is a critical tool for police officers across America, and it's our commitment to be able to bring to you the capabilities with the support that you demand and that you need and that you expect with a service provider. So our whole mantra is, what can we do better to serve those that serve our communities? I was privileged to grow up in a law enforcement household. I saw it firsthand how important the work that my father did when he was in law enforcement, and the sacrifices he made for himself, his family, and his community. And trust me, there's a ton of that sentiment at Verizon. We know that it's a higher calling and a privilege to serve the public safety, law enforcement, first responder community, and we take that very, very seriously. So throughout this session, we're going to try to correlate to you all the things that we're doing that ultimately are going to help in serving those that serve. Okay. I'm going to start with the features and the functionality and the product sets that have been launched and will be continued to be delivered to the marketplace to give you the security, privacy, preemption, and priority that you need to get your job done. Earlier this year in March, we were pleased to launch our dedicated private core, which segregates public safety traffic away from commercial traffic to provide you better application performance and better security. Verizon Private Core is in market today and being utilized by public safety. We're also pleased to have enabled not only wireless priority service and mobile broadband priority services to give you a better percentage or a better likelihood that you'll be able to make a connection when the demand on the system is extremely high. But we've also enabled preemption services for you to be able to get your call and your data connection through above and beyond any of our other commercial customers. We've got exciting news as it relates to our deployable network. You may know that Verizon has hundreds of deployable assets, network enhancers, network supplements across America ready to serve. In fact, we used dozens of them just recently to support Hurricane Florence. We now have provided the opportunity for public safety to procure their own deployable unit. We are working with industry to develop push-to-talk features for mission-critical applications. We are developing an application ecosystem on top of the services we already provide to be able to allow your police officers better functionality in the field to be able to better do their position. So this is basically, and I'm going to mention the word. I wasn't sure if I was going to mention the word, but I'm going to mention the word. This is all the functionality that you're getting or could get on the FirstNet system. Verizon has been a decades-long supporter of the FirstNet concepts and the FirstNet vision, and ultimately what we believe to be the FirstNet mission. The good news about FirstNet, in our mind, is that it's built on open 4G LTE standards called 3GPP. So anything that FirstNet is doing, we can do as well. And I'm going to show you what the advantages are by having Verizon do it as well. We're also pleased that while every state in the nation opted in, FirstNet is not mandatory. And it's a local community, municipality, city, county, and state decision whether or not to do business with FirstNet. Our objective here today is to give you as much information as possible to give you all the justification you need to continue to do business with Verizon. Because we're talking about the outcomes of what the technology will enable. And I'm confident that these functionalities on our network will deliver you better mission outcomes. We're also very excited to be able to offer up to you what we call safe city offerings. You've heard terminology, smart communities or Internet of Things. These are functionalities that we're bringing to market today to enable, again, increased efficiency, productivity, and capabilities to your law enforcement agencies. We already have in market the intelligent video solution with proactive notifications enabling advanced video analysis. And we're very excited in the coming months to be able to deliver our real-time response system, our evidence management centralized service solution, as well as our gunshot detection capability in a partnership with ShotSpotter. We're happy to have Ralph Clark, I believe, here in the room, the CEO of ShotSpotter. Many of you have come to rely on capabilities from different technology and service providers like ShotSpotter, like Axon. We're real happy to know that leading companies in this segment are working with Verizon to help bring you the best-in-breed solutions on the best-in-breed networks. And again, we're going to go deep and wide on a lot of these topics with the panel. I wanted to put a drum roll in front of this slide, but I was advised not to. We don't typically pat ourselves on the back at Verizon, but the things that I told you about, whether that be priority services or special applications for public safety, real-time response systems and whatnot, they really only matter as much as the network they are enabled by. Another terrific attribute for Verizon as it relates to FirstNet is when you look under the hood of FirstNet, you find the AT&T commercial network. The same towers, the same switches that AT&T commercial customers use. That's the last time I'm going to mention AT&T because I'd rather talk about the attributes of what we bring to the table. But the bottom line is, folks, that Verizon has a better network. We've got more, we cover more people. In fact, 450,000 more people. I'm sorry, more miles. We got to do a count on the people. It's probably a lot more than that. But 450,000 more square miles than our nearest commercial competitor. This is not an accident. Verizon, and I've been here 20 years, has continually put the network first, building, operating, maintaining, and sustaining America's most reliable, best performing network. And what matters most, I think, from a value proposition perspective, is that you have the connectivity and the coverage you need to do your jobs in the communities that you serve. Again, FirstNet is built on open 3GPP, 4G LTE, say that 3 times fast, standards. And we're thrilled to be able to deliver the capabilities and functionality that public safety demands on that network. This is not an initiative or endeavor that we've only been at the last couple of years. Verizon has, in fact, invested more than $126 billion in our network infrastructure since the year 2000. We invest billions of dollars every year to ensure that we've got the right coverage, the right reliability, and the right network performance to be able to ensure that we've got the right support for you. Public safety is an interesting customer base. You just don't come in and throw up marketing materials and aggressive PR campaigns to earn their trust. I believe that our public safety law enforcement customers have a higher bar than that. It's the years of experience in working with Verizon and the years of performance and delivering for our customers that have earned us this position. Our commitment is unwavering. We will continue, as we have in the past, to deliver the best, most reliable network and the best, most accountable, with a lot of urgency, support for our public safety customers. This is a eye chart, but I want to point your eyes to the bottom. I said I wouldn't mention their name again, but I guess I have to. It's quoted here. David Rettel is the Assistant Secretary for Communications and Information for the National Telecommunications and Information Administration, or the NTIA, within the Department of Commerce. David Rettel's organization oversees FirstNet. In a recent article, he was quoted that AT&T and Verizon competing vigorously in the market for public safety customers only helps first responders get exactly what they need at the best possible price. We're a major proponent of competition driving innovation, competition driving best price, and based on the local marketplace, let the best company win. We like our chances, and in fact, since the announcement of the FirstNet contract, thanks to all the loyal customers we have across the country, our business has grown. But we also realize that there's a higher calling and demand for interoperability. About a month or so ago, I was out at the California First Responder Network board meeting in Sacramento. It was September 11th, 2018. If you recall, September 11th, 2001, interoperability was one of the major challenges or failures in and around the 9/11 response. If you think about it, FirstNet is built on open 4G LTE standards, industry standards, no different than the Verizon network. Verizon and AT&T customers can talk. Verizon and AT&T customers can text. They can email rather seamlessly. We believe there's a higher opportunity here, though, to create true interoperability related to the features and functionality that public safety demands. Specifically, interoperability as it relates to an application ecosystem, not creating proprietary solutions that only work on one network. Specifically, creating end-to-end priority and preemption capabilities, so when a Verizon first responder connects with an AT&T first responder and vice versa, their priority and preemption levels are recognized as equivalent. And then certainly on the functionality of applications such as mission critical push-to-talk. For the last year and a half, Verizon has been knocking at the door of the NTIA, FirstNet, and AT&T, trying to get a sit-down with smart network engineers to make this chart a reality. Unfortunately, we've not been effective. We're going to keep at it. I think the best opportunity we have is to continue to be extremely relevant in the marketplace, leveraging the network that we have, leveraging the new products and service capabilities that we're bringing to bear, leveraging the new partners that we have in the marketplace, like the Mutual Link team behind us. Mutual Link will help Verizon create interoperability. We'll talk more about that later today. But we're going to stay at it. We're not going to waver, and we believe it's the right thing to do for this very, very important user community. Okay. I've been saying that 5G is not a transitional network, it's a transformational network. And I want you to open up your minds about what exponential bandwidth, increased exponential bandwidth, and what exponentially reduced latency will provide to a connected police officer or a connected police car. Verizon is thrilled to be able to tell you that we now have commercial 5G deployed in Sacramento, Indianapolis, Los Angeles, and Houston. And while our first foray into the market is a fixed application for broadband, we are already working with law enforcement to test and trial and develop proof of concepts for this very, very important community. There's a lot of noise and there'll be a lot of marketing hype around 5G. Companies are going to try to confuse the marketplace. Companies are going to try to create all 5G is created equal. Based on Verizon's track record with the prior generations of technology, including 4G LTE, I'm here to tell you that that's not the case. We've got an incredibly large portfolio of millimeter wave spectrum, that's high band spectrum, that will provide the capabilities and capacity for that exponential bandwidth and reduced latency. We also are aggressively laying fiber nationwide in more than 50 markets to have the necessary backhaul enabled. Again, a lot of tech talk, I apologize, but you need fiber to your switches and cell sites to have the backhaul to be able to get to the speeds that we're promising. But extremely efficient, low maintenance, smart community applications for video, for data, real-time remote control, automation, and cloud-based applications. And we look forward to working with our partners and our customers to provide you what is possible over this 5G network of the future. Okay. Thanks for hearing me out. I appreciate the time here today. We've got now just about an hour to go deeper and wider on some of the services and solutions that I've already mentioned. Chief Raley is going to help me out, and we're going to trade spots, and you're going to lead the Q&A. Hold your applause for Chief.
Thank you, Mike, and please excuse my voice. I've been fighting a cold all week. It doesn't happen until the most important time, and that was going to be today's panel discussion. We've been out in the field as members of TDD working with Verizon and have been listening to questions coming from the field, from the officers. We've had our ear to the ground talking with chiefs and officers in various departments, and I want to bring some of those questions to the panel today. And I'm going to start with this. We saw the network coverage there, and we hear on the commercials all the time that Verizon is touting itself as the nation's most reliable network. How does Verizon measure this, and how do they make this happen? And anyone on the panel who can answer that.
So I'll jump on the mic first here, and others feel free to chime in. So it's kind of a proud moment, you know, as Mike was talking about before, when we have the chance to look at the network and see how well it performs during an actual crisis type situation, understanding that it takes a couple of core things. It takes capable people, well-trained engineers, people that have been doing this for many, many years, experts in network design, experts in switch operations, experts in networking. And it takes money, a lot of money. Mike talked about $126 billion. And we're talking, you know, tens of billions of dollars on a regular basis. So,
Hey, Bob, I'm not sure the mic's working.
testing
Right
1, 2. All right.
We good?
We're good.
Just elevate.
Little closer. Good deal. So part of this for me is about the two things being people and money. And when you have those two things, and our executive team is very focused on obviously delivering these capabilities, we're putting people on the project, we're putting money into the project. So when I think about how do we do that, how do we actually operationalize that, I think about kind of three concentric rings, right? So we've got the core of the network, and we have the switching layer, and then we have the cell sites on the outer ring. And all three of those layers have investments in reliability, have investments in power, have investments in redundancy. And I could talk for probably 20 minutes about each of those. I won't. But to touch on a couple of the key things there, especially when I think about the core, these are locations that are fault tolerant, they're redundant, they're geographically diverse across the country. So if even one of those locations goes offline, the other location will pick up the service. So what we do, what my team does, is we help the network teams develop those plans, test those capabilities so that it's not paper, it's not a theoretical thing, it's real. We provide quarterly reports to the executive team so that they know, dashboard style, red, yellow, green, did the tests work, did the plans work, is it real? You know, we want to have our own internal teams be confident that these things work. Part of the way we drive that focus is on a regular basis, every year we confirm the things that are mission critical to our business. So it's not just network is a key component of that, of course, but it's also other customer-facing systems, whether it's provisioning systems, billing systems, activation systems, customer service systems, systems that allow our own internal teams to operate. So all of those key things are on our list, the list of mission-critical applications and functions that need to be maintained. So anyway, a little bit of a tangent there on at the how we get there. But in that core, those things are so redundant that it makes me proud to think about, all right, not to taunt Mother Nature, but bring it on. You know, we want to be careful about that because we know technology is a fickle thing. Things can break, but we do everything we can to, if something breaks, get on it. Quickly get the right teams on it, escalate it, make sure that we're working closely with the vendor partners to get things resolved. The next thing I'll talk about is backup power. And this is, again, something that permeates not just at the core, at the switching layer, and at the cell sites, all the way through. And there are a few components to that as well. To start with the core piece of this, every single location has multiple generators. It's amazing when if you have the opportunity to go do a tour of some of these facilities, it will knock your socks off. Spotless, clean, organized, looks like a hospital in terms of its cleanliness. And we think about the size of the generators that are in those locations. Even if one of those generators goes down, there's a second generator that's there to help pick up that load. We also have mobile generators that can be brought in that can support an entire switch facility. They can be plugged in, augment that power, supplement the power if there's a concern. Those locations also have rooms filled with batteries. So it's not just a generator, it's also the batteries that support all of that. Those locations can typically run for from 3 to 4 days without even getting a refueling of fuel. The next layer is that switching layer. Very similar story. Multiple generators, backup batteries. The next layer on the cell site side. 100% of our cell sites have backup batteries. What does that mean to our customers? That means that even if there's a little hiccup in the power, whether it's for 30 seconds or whether it's for 30 minutes or whether it's for longer, those batteries provide that immediate support. The next layer on that, of course, is the batteries don't last forever. Everybody knows that. More than 85% of our cell sites have permanent backup generators on site at the locations today, which means even if that battery starts to get drained, the generator's fired up, keeping that cell site online. And when you start to think about the actual preparations that the teams are going through right now for Hurricane Michael as it's approaching the Panhandle, they're getting their generator teams ready, they're getting the fueling teams lined up, because they know that one of the key things for us is keeping fuel going and flowing to all these perhaps hundreds of locations that may lose power. So I'll leave it at that for now.
Anyone else have anything they'd like to say about that?
Thank you.
Okay, you brought it up. Mother Nature, bring it on. Well, right now, the cone of uncertainty of Hurricane Michael is looking at West Florida. And as it makes its way through the Gulf, it looks like it's going to be a Category 3 hurricane when it hits. You spoke briefly about what y'all are doing to prepare for that. Can anyone on the panel tell us what y'all are currently doing to prepare for Michael, and relate that to what Verizon did as Florence was targeting the Carolinas.
The microphone happens to be here, right? So, yeah, absolutely. So this, you know, we need to be careful not to be overconfident, right? So you start to see some of the pride that comes through, which is clear. That's not, it's based on years of seeing the network operate through these storms. So when I think about Michael, we have crisis management teams across the country. We have a team that's led by the executive leaders for the Southeast market. They are having calls, just like they did during Hurricane Florence, and they will ramp up the frequency and the number of those calls as needed based on the severity of the event. Part of, again, what our team does is we train those teams. We keep those teams fresh and ready to go so that they know who's in charge, who's going to be leading the response for network, who's going to be engaged in leading the response for the retail teams, who's going to be doing that for the customer service channel. So again, so that those leaders know who's the team that's with them helping make this happen, helping lead the response. So that team's on the game, in the game. I mentioned the network team, getting the network ready, whether it's for backup fuel, testing the generators, making sure that they understand if there are issues, or perhaps they know that there's a generator that's been starting to have some minor issues. Well, we know a storm's coming, let's go out there and get that thing fixed. Prioritize that thing right away. If there are locations that they know might be in lower lying areas, even though we do everything we can to build locations and sites that are not vulnerable above the floodplain, sometimes you need to put something in a location that's a little bit more vulnerable. So we know about those. What do you do with those? You sandbag them. You do other things to ensure that you've done everything to make sure that if that location does go offline, you've got a portable asset that you can bring in to supplement the coverage or to replace the coverage there. Other than that, it's making sure that we've brought in other resources into the perimeter. So we have a lot of the resources still here in the Southeast from Hurricane Florence. Many of those are still in the North Carolina, Georgia. We're bringing them into the varying parts of Florida just to make sure that wherever that storm does finally make landfall, that we have assets nearby, not where the center of impact is, but close by so that the teams can bring them in where they're needed. One of the things I was talking about the bravado a little bit before. When I think about Harvey last year, I think about Irma last year, I think about the wildfires out west, and this is a continued story. But Nikki Palmer described our chief network officer described our network as an absolute beast. The way she described it to me was just overflowing with pride, understanding that time and that money and the people that work on this network, that it pays off, and it means something to the first responder community who rely on that on a regular basis.
So I'll add to that is how Verizon shows up also in not only during the event, but also after the event, helping recover the network and the community. So a specific example is when Harvey impacted Texas last year, over 98% of our sales sites stayed up. And for those that were impacted, we had 8 deployable assets rolled out on site to get those networks back online. Immediately after, we had drones deployed to help survey the remaining areas to make sure that there wasn't anything that we missed. In addition to that, also, first responders needed to communicate. And when their networks, when their carriers were not available, Verizon handed out over 2,000 units, 2,000 devices to first responders so they could communicate. I don't know, I don't care how much or how many or who do you pay with, you need to communicate today. Verizon was able to hand those devices to first responders and businesses to keep the business up and running while we were trying to help them recover. In addition to that, we also rolled out our Big Red, which helps the community get connected, sometimes take a shower if they don't have access to their homes. We provide free connectivity to the community. Over 1.8 million users were connected for free on Verizon during the Harvey events. So it's about helping first responders, it's about helping business, it's about helping the community while we work on our network. In addition to that, we also provided over $10 million to help in the recovery efforts of the communities. So the network is what we all rally around, but most importantly is how we support the community and show up for first responders in those events.
Hurricanes are the issue of the day, but I know that Verizon serves the nation, and not everyone in the nation deals with hurricanes. There are other crisis events that Verizon has to respond to. How does the response to hurricanes, Florence, Michael, compare to other crisis events around the country, and how Verizon responds to assist first responders?
So there's a bit of a theme here, right? It's similar, first of all, in that we have the crisis management teams across the country. We train them in a traditional approach, which is called an all hazards approach, which means it doesn't matter what the threat is. And this is, again, something that is an industry-approved approach where whether it's a man-made event, a terrorism type event, whether it's a hurricane, whether it's a wildfire, whether it's an earthquake, tornadoes, we've seen almost all of those, right, over the years. Even pandemic events was a concern years back. Something very different. It's like, let's make sure that we're engaged and the teams are ready to respond. So those crisis management teams are key. But I also start to think about some of the specifics. So flooding is different. Winter storms are different. Access into areas when a large percentage of the roads have been flooded becomes a concern. So it emphasizes some of the things that Anna was talking about, which is that partnership with the first responders, and that is a huge thing for us. So part of it's supporting the communities, with the charging centers where people can make a free phone call and charge their device, regardless of whether they're a Verizon customer or not. But more tactically, we partner very closely with the state emergency operations centers and the county emergency operations centers, the state police organizations, to make sure that they have what they need, that we have clean communication channels between our organization and their organizations. I think about during Florence, and we've seen this during other events as well, actually having our people in the state EOCs making sure that their priorities are our priorities and vice versa, so that those key things are getting done. I start to think about other stories. It's like the images start to come to mind about folks out in the Pacific. One of the gentlemen out there and his team respond during fire season like aces. SUV with a trailer behind them with a portable cell tower, going from fire camp to fire camp, making sure that those first responders have what they need, giving them loaner devices, giving them data devices, jetpacks. There is a support, and this is at zero cost. And this is not a money-making thing. This is a service opportunity for Verizon. And again, it's a proud moment for the organization to be able to shake that hand, make sure that they've got what they need, and help do the right thing to support the community. One of the things that we often start to talk about is we have a common mission, which is to help organizations communicate. So whether it's Verizon doing what we can do, whether it's the law enforcement folks doing what they're doing to help the community, and us helping both organizations, both groups communicate, that's a consistent theme regardless. The other things I start to think about are the loaner devices that Anna was talking about. So not just last year during Harvey and Irma, but going back to 9/11, 6,000 devices loaned to public safety organizations during 9/11. Katrina, we had multiple organizations that were impacted. Again, we had about 20 portable cell towers that were set up during Hurricane Katrina. We had over 3,000, I believe it was about 3,500 devices loaned during Hurricane Katrina. Again, so this is not something that's been, dreamt up in the past 6 months or 2 years. This is something that the company's been doing, since its inception.
Thank you. And here at IECP, public safety and first responders are in the forefront of everyone's discussion. So let me ask how Verizon has recommitted itself to the public safety market over the past year.
Chief, I'll take that one, despite the arm. I think the important word you use there is recommitted, right? Bob mentioned a great point there at the end. This isn't something that we started doing 6 months ago, and he's talking about the network. This is something we've done since our inception to prepare for some of the worst disasters. But supporting the public safety community is something we've been committed to for 15 plus years, right? So we've been supporting government accounts for a very long time at Verizon, including our public safety customers. What we've done over the last year plus has recommitted to that market. But since 2003, we've had dedicated government sales teams, dedicated public safety. We've had dedicated customer service operations. We've had dedicated contracts and operations and legal teams. And that's the message that Mike mentioned earlier. This isn't something you can just do as a part of everything else, and along with everything else, you need to be dedicated to this market and to this public safety community, which we have been for over 15 years. And that's really the important message there, I think, Chief, is that over those last 15 years, we've continued to grow our share of the market in terms of communications with the public safety community. But what's changed over the last year has been the extra focus and the extra demand from first responders for their telecommunications network and the solutions that they get from technology providers. And that's what we're really excited about. Since last year, when FirstNet was awarded, we were able to really hear from first responders exactly what else they expect from telecommunication. And when we looked at the original RFP as well as the award, we said, you know, we can do all that. There's nothing special about the FirstNet network. There's nothing special that Verizon cannot deliver to our first responders as well. And so what we came out with last August, actually Mike did at a similar event, was a commitment to market, a commitment to make sure that we deliver all of the services, the solutions, the products that FirstNet was going to offer. And we started building that immediately last year, waiving charges for WPS and priority services. And then within 9 months, starting this March, launching the public safety private core that Mike talked about, priority and preemption services in March of this year. So incredibly excited about that. And that really forms the basis of everything we're doing going forward, building on that public safety core, not just to enable priority and preemption services, but to talk about customer-enabled deployable units, like Bob was talking about mission-critical push-to-talk services that'll be coming out later this year, and an application ecosystem that's going to be available to first responders on any network. So I'd say, yes, it's absolutely a recommitment to the market. We absolutely believe in serving the public safety community because our missions are so closely aligned in how we run to a crisis and how they run to a crisis, and we're here to support this community for a very long time. We're not walking away, but it's also the fact that we've been here for a very long time, and I think that's the key message there, Chief.
Thank you. Mike, in your opening remarks, you mentioned 5G, and we've all heard the hype or the noise around 5G, but I don't know too many chiefs that can explain the difference or understand the difference in technical language between 3G, 4G, 5G. Is there someone here on the panel that can explain 5G in a way that chiefs will understand? And let me be a little more specific. How is it going to benefit our officers out in the field?
I'll take a crack at that.
Okay.
So
I'll tell you if I understand it.
perfect. So to understand 5G is helpful to understand what has happened before. So 1G brought us voice. 2G brought us short text messaging. 3G brought us enough speed to now support a smartphone. Now 4G has brought us incredible speeds that support connected devices that we have today. 4G is a technology that we continue to invest and will continue to do that for the foreseeable future, is how we augment and support the use cases that we all have today. We continue to invest in narrowband IoT. We continue to invest in increasing the peak speeds that 4G and its technology supports. But with 5G, we're talking about 20 times the speed that we have today with 4G. We're talking about capacity that is 1,000 times more bandwidth that we support today with 4G. We're talking about latency, so the lag in the connection that supports near real-time experiences is many times faster than a blink of an eye. Literally, blink, you don't see the lag that you'll be able to experience with 5G. And then the energy consumption that is going to be able to be improved so that the battery of the devices is going to be able to last longer. So when you put all that together, you're able to get ultra-fast, high-speed uploads, downloads, longer battery life, and just a capacity to support use cases that we hardly can imagine. I can give you a list of use cases that we can envision today, but I can guarantee you that's only scratching the surface of what we will be able to achieve as we see 5G come into market.
And let me just ask a quick follow-up on that. Buffering that we experience now sometimes when we're trying to push video over the current networks, is that something that will be assisted by this 5G, this faster speed?
Absolutely. So that's going to be helped by the massive capacity that you'll be able to support with 5G. And I'll give you, just to make it a little more tangible, a few examples of some of the use cases that we can already start to envision with 5G. Number one is, I talked about high bandwidth, high fast upload and download. So think of massive 4K, 8K video that you're going to be able to support, but not just the video that you'll be able to get, but the situational awareness, the augmented reality that you'll be able to also combine with that. And it's video that is going to provide you real-time situational awareness with data in it. It's not just good to see 1,000 hours of video, but to understand the information that comes supported with that video feed that you're getting. Augmented reality to support training situations. If you saw some of the Super Bowl training and you experienced your training situations, you'll be able to now support it with mixed reality that helps make that training closer to the day of the job that you're going to have to execute on that training. Other use cases are the next communication experience, which will be holographic video to make it even more real, closer to the situation at hand. Another use case is with that low latency that I explained, the very low lag, you'll be able to now imagine manage drones with very good speed and accuracy that is going to reduce any risk to human lives, and it's going to increase the collaboration across different unmanned vehicles and drones. And those are just to name a few. Any training capabilities, any video capabilities, any intelligence that we would like to have in our day-to-day, we'll be able to enable that with 5G.
Well, sounds exciting. I've heard a lot about smart cities. There's a lot of talk about that. What is smart cities, and what's Verizon doing in that area?
So I'll take that, Chief. And I want to add on to what Anna was saying. I mean, 5G is going to be enabled really because of the spectrum that we've been able to secure over the last few years. And that's really what enables those speeds that Anna's talking about, those applications that she's talking about. The band 13 spectrum that we've had since 2007 has enabled about 20 megahertz of spectrum up to 40 megahertz of spectrum nationwide. So if you think of a highway going nationwide, it's about a 20 to 40 lane highway, right? And so if you think of other networks that have been announced recently, about 20 lane highways, what we're talking about in 5G is 800 megahertz, so 800 lane highways. The amount of speed, the amount of data that we can push through an 800 lane highway is just absolutely mind-boggling. And some of the applications that Anna's talking about and thinking about are mind-boggling as well, but that's going to set up the network of 10, 15 years out, and what we can do with that network is going to be pretty incredible. And that kind of gets into what we're talking about with smart cities. Smart cities, safe cities that Mike was talking about earlier is network technology, or technology that's built on the network of today, right? It's built on the 3G, the 4G networks, the Cat-M, the NB-IoT networks that are coming that are going to enable those technologies. But what we're really talking about is better data and better data analytics, better understanding of what's going on in the city, better situational awareness at multiple levels of city jurisdiction, right? So everyone from the mayor down to the dog catcher really can have better visibility to what's going on in the community around them with smart cities and safe cities, right? So it's sensors across the city. It's the sensors in street lights. It's sensors on traffic lights. It's sensors for parking. And all of that coming together into a dashboard or some sort of visualization with some sort of intelligence to give them a better way to run their community, to be more efficient, and to provide better citizen services. That's really what mayors, what folks are looking for when they're talking about smart cities and keeping their cities safer. What Verizon's doing in that area is looking at specific pain points, one, to bring solutions to market that are going to help enable those city leaders to deliver better citizen services, deliver better, safer cities, to deliver hopefully less traffic in cities, and to deliver better parking in cities. And so we're doing that through collaboration with very key partners. One that Mike mentioned earlier, ShotSpotter in the room, so very excited to have that partnership, but others as well that are going to really utilize the Verizon network across cities to deliver those services. And then two, it's being able to provide the framework, the network that we talked about, built on our fiber assets. So Verizon recently announced a One Fiber initiative, so deploying fiber across the United States, across major cities, to really set the groundwork for our 5G deployment, but also to provide better fiber and network access and network connectivity to cities across the country. And so what we're doing in those cities that we're deploying fiber assets is creating public-private partnerships, because we realize cities can't do it alone and Verizon can't do it alone. We don't have all the answers, but together we can solve some really cool problems, and so really critical problems. So we announced a public-private partnership with Sacramento last year to really start working on how do we create a more efficient city. And so we're going to continue doing that with cities across the country. And that's really how Verizon is contributing. One, laying the groundwork. Two, being a good partner to the cities, and then three, figuring out what solutions we can bring to market with our partners to solve specific problems.
Thank you. Mike, you mentioned in the opening slides about the term interoperability, and there's not a chief in this room that is not concerned about a large-scale event where we have to have officers from other jurisdictions, perhaps on different networks, coming in to assist us in addressing this large-scale event. So interoperability is key to these chiefs. What is Verizon doing to move interoperability forward?
So I'll start, and then I'll let Anna comment and highlight an announcement that we just made this morning related to Mutual Link. I put a chart up on the presentation screen a bit ago. The good news about FirstNet is that it's built on open 3GPP standards, 4G LTE standards. There's no proprietary sauce in this recipe. So the possibility and the capability of interoperability is there. Certainly, if you all use Verizon, you'll have no problem with interoperability, and we advocate for that in many cases. But all seriousness, we realize that you have a choice for your service provider, and that while we're going to compete for your business, in some cases there will not be, there'll be other service providers there, including the other carriers that we don't mention often in this space. So we're advocating for interoperability at the federal level, at the state level, and we urge our customers and our chiefs, associations like the IACP and others, to petition and urge FirstNet to really be the arm or the enabler to get Verizon and AT&T to the table to put forth a true interoperable network for these very, very important users. But in the meantime, we're up to other things, and we think we've got some pretty neat solutions that I want Anna to talk to.
Very good. So to tie with why it's so important to talk about the standards, Verizon issued an RFP to select our mission-critical push-to-talk vendors, and number one requirement of that RFP is for the solution to be based on 3GPP standards to be able to support interoperability with any other 3GPP standard-based mission-critical communication. So that's the number one step that we've started to take towards that interoperability. Number two, our wireless priority services. While every other carrier has similar capabilities and the same contract with the Department of Homeland Security, we are committed to deliver on the requirement to allow the priority translation between networks. It is a commitment that we've made to the Department of Homeland Security, so that when you place your WPS calls, you know that they will receive the same priority across networks. And we have a team of people focused on how to deliver that and be ready for when other carriers take that same step. And then the most important news of the day, if you haven't seen the news yet, you'll see it when you step out of the room. Verizon has announced its partnership with MutualLink as another step towards that comprehensive interoperability. With MutualLink, we are able to connect multiple networks and their communications, their agencies. Each agency's network will be able to be connected with whoever they choose to share video and to share the critical communication they have. We value MutualLink's technology and their partnership and what they bring to market, and we see this as yet another step towards that desired state of interoperability for our public safety.
Thank you. You mentioned competing for business. Here's your chance. As Chief of Police, why should I choose Verizon?
Could I take that one? We're doing our best to get face-to-face with our customers all across America in every town, municipality, city, and county to educate them on what Verizon is doing to support their very important end users. So from a chief perspective, sometimes we get anxious that the chief is per se reading the headlines and not necessarily reading the full context of the story. So many chiefs have a terrific staff advising them on technology decisions. Verizon is committed to ensuring that those staff members as well as the chiefs have a full story as it relates to their choice. So number one, I want to make sure every chief in America understands that they have a choice. They can use Verizon, they can use T-Mobile, they can use Sprint, they can use AT&T. It's their choice. Verizon has federal, state, and local contract vehicles to conduct business across every township, municipality, and county in America. So knowing that they have choice, it then comes down to local market conditions, local market experience, and what have you done for me, quite frankly, lately? We are really pleased that we've got great long-term relationships with these customers, and we've developed a trusted relationship where we can look our customers in the eye. I tell a story about a chief that I have a personal relationship with over the years. I live in Maryland. It's one of the big county chiefs. And on a Sunday night, I'm at a local restaurant with my wife and kids, and in comes this chief and his wife. And I was proud to be able to walk up to him, shake his hand, look him in the eye. Chief, thanks for your continued commitment and promotion of Verizon. Thank you for your business. I hope you have a great meal today. Versus running out the back door. Holy crap, there's the chief. I'm over-promising and under-delivering. I can't see him on a weekend. No, that's not how we operate. We are upfront, we're honest, we're direct. Again, we may not have all the marketing sizzle and promise of the future, although I think we did a pretty darn good job talking about smart communities and 5G today. We've delivered for this segment in the past, and we will continue to deliver for this segment in the future. We don't need a federal agency overseeing what we're doing. We have shareholders, we have a board of directors, and we've got senior executives at Verizon that are extremely committed to winning in this segment. We have the financial wherewithal and the network above and beyond anything else, the network that is the best. And all the cool things that are being brought to bear on a commercial network for FirstNet can be brought to bear on the Verizon network. And then you add in the partnerships with MutualLink, with ShotSpotter, with Axon. These are smart companies. Why would they be signing on deals with Verizon if they thought all the business was going to another provider? We've got a big lead when it comes to coverage and and reliability and network performance. We're going to keep that lead. No one's going to catch us. And that's what ultimately matters most. We're in the communities. I mentioned how we in addition to supporting IACP and national sheriffs and the law enforcement museums and so on and so on. You know, we're not just showing up to do business. We recognize our overarching commitment to serve in the community and to give back. So we're really happy about where our business is today. I honestly believe FirstNet is the tide that's raising all boats related to the capabilities, functionality, industry, engagement. Large companies like Verizon, small companies, medium-sized technology companies. Just look at the Samsung booth that's here at IACP. I don't know if they had a booth ever before, or maybe the last couple of years. And these are great partners, Samsung, but they're raising their game. How cool is it that companies like Samsung are raising their game to deliver public safety with better capabilities? So I am happy to look a chief in the eye, shake their hand, thank them for their business, commit to them that Verizon has their back, and deliver for them the capabilities and functionality that they know best a company like Verizon can deliver.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you. Speaking of kicking it up a notch, how is Verizon building a platform for the future of public safety? You've talked about 5G and everything else. What are you doing to build the platform for the future?
Yeah, I'll jump on that. Thanks, Chief. So I want to hit on what Mike said. The fact that you have a choice in this market, the fact that all of our law enforcement, all of our first responders that are out there have a choice. And we're talking about not just your wireless services. Wireless services are certainly what we think about every day, because it's the shiny black rectangle that we carry in our pockets every single day, and it's our access, it's our connection to all of the services that we want to get access to. But it's also about the security of your network. It's also about your landline network. It's also about your desk phones. It's all of those other services that Verizon also provides to those first responders, to those law enforcement agencies that we don't always talk about, and how that whole ecosystem comes together. And I think that's incredibly important as well, and that access to technology. But what Mike said earlier was interesting. It's that partnership, is understanding what our first responders' mission is, and figuring out the best communication and technologies to be able to support that. And so that aligns with kind of what we've been doing in Verizon for the last few years. So back in 2015, we started a conversion in our network to upgrade from hardware-based networking, physical connections, over to software-defined networking. That really laid the groundwork for a lot of different things in the network technologies that Verizon deploys across all of our networks, our fiber networks, our MPLS networks, our wireless networks, and it really sets us up for the future of 5G. But along that way, we looked at how do we create our public safety core, and what do we do to enable a true segmentation, separate out our network, all of our data segmentation, all of our traffic from commercial to public safety. And the best thing that we saw for public safety was creating a virtual segmentation of our core. It creates an incredibly secure, dynamic, scalable, network resilient technology that enables true segmentation as well as security for our first responders. So we're incredibly excited about creating that back in March, and give Anna a lot of kudos, because she was the one that actually architected it and built it and launched it back in March. And so incredibly excited about launching that in March. But that's really the framework. That's that platform that you talk about to be able to enable all of the other services that we're also talking about. So priority and preemption services. So the ability for first responders to get first access to our network, the ability to remove commercial users from our network across the entire network, not just in a single spectrum band, but across all of our spectrum bands across our entire network, to be able to enable those services. And then the deployable network services that we talked about, the spot trailer, the mobile connectivity trailer we bring to disasters, enabling that for core access as well. So that's what we're really excited about. That's that baseline platform. But where does it go from here? Because of the scalability, because of the security that the software-defined networking, that virtual segmentation allows for our public safety core, now we can scale into the amount of devices that's going to be coming with NB-IoT and 5G, and that's going to be thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of devices that are going to enable smart cities. And as we go down that path, we are set up for the future to be able to enable all of those devices, not just with the speed, the latency, the long battery life, but the scale of the amount of devices that are going to be touching our network. And that's why we're set up for the future. That's why I'm very confident standing being able to talk to the chiefs that we talk to, that we're committed to this very long term because of the technology that we've built into it. Anna, did you want to add anything?
I couldn't have said it better.
Perfect.
And you did a pretty good job of answering my next question. We've talked a lot about priority and preemption in the opening slides, and then we've heard that come up a couple of times. Do you want to dive a little deeper on what priority and preemption means to the officers out in the field and how it affects them and impacts them?
Sure. So very simplistic. Priority is, I'm going to tie it to the chief that Mike ran into at the restaurant. So imagine if you have a reservation to a restaurant. The chief shows up and the line is very long. With priority, he'll be able to get first in that line to get the table when Mike is done with dinner. So priority is the ability to be first when the network resources are available so you can connect. But preemption is the chief can't wait. He's going to get Mike off the table because Mike is a commercial user and get access to that table. So preemption is the ability that we have in the network to take the resources from commercial users and reallocate it to first responders so that they can connect. So that's the difference between priority and preemption. We do have in our network, I mentioned wireless priority services, which is a program that we support through the Department of Homeland Security that allows us to give you end-to-end priority for your voice communications. We launched in March our mobile broadband priority service that allows us to give you access, prioritize access to the network for all and any of your applications, not just voice, but anything you initiate from your device gets that priority access to the network. And with preemption that we also enabled in March, we are able to reallocate resources to first responders so that the communication can take place. Any type of communication can take place. And today in our network, those wireless priority service calls have preemption capabilities. So you know that when you make that star 272 call, you will get the resources needed to make that call, not just be first on the queue, but get the resources if needed. So that's the difference between priority and preemption.
Well, you just won me over because first in line, first to eat is important to chiefs. I'll just tell you that. What's Verizon doing for first responders, like volunteers, like officers out in the field who are not issued city, county, state, federal cell phones? What's Verizon doing to help them when it comes to that priority access?
Yeah, thanks, Chief. So that's an incredibly important contingent of first responders, right? Especially the ones that go out there every day and support their local communities without pay, to volunteer. It's pretty incredible. But then you also have, like you said, all of the first responders that don't get issued a cell phone. And I address it a couple different ways. One is certainly we want to make sure that those first responders that don't have city, county, state issued cell phones or the volunteers in the same position have access to the same services that the first responders that get a county issued, state issued, city issued phone get. And so that starts with priority services, right? So we've enabled WPS for our bring your own device, we call them users, at no charge. So we waive those charges, as well as MBP, mobile broadband priority. So they get access to voice and data priority at no charge, regardless of whether they're paying their own bill or not. They also get a discount on their monthly bill. So we have a 15% discount for all volunteers, all first responders that bring their own device. And so those are the first initiatives that we've launched to enable similar features for our volunteers, for those bring your own device users in the public safety communities. You know, a discount on their monthly bill and then priority access to the network. And we're going to be enabling additional services in the future. But it's also important to remember that not every state, city, or county can afford to give all of their first responders $500,000 cell phones. These are incredibly expensive pieces of equipment. That's why we continue to work with IoT manufacturers, smart device manufacturers that can enable more smart technology into the technology that those first responders use every day. So smart vests, smart helmets, smarter vehicles that have more integrated technologies that aren't just cell phones that we think about as, you know, their standard cell phones, but also all the amount of connections and technology that they have access to, and making sure that those devices are connected with priority and preemption on the network. Because while we think about priority and preemption a lot with my voice call better go through, it's also incredibly important for your body camera footage to go through. It's incredibly important for the sensor that detects whether there's a man down to go through. And those kind of technologies are also important, and they come with the technology that's supporting our volunteers and first responders.
Good, and thank you. Mike, if you'll forgive me, you've addressed it a couple of times, so I'm going to address the elephant in the room. Is there anything that FirstNet AT&T is doing that Verizon cannot do?
Well, we can't give you 3 months free HBO and a DirecTV discount when you sign up for FirstNet. It sort of troubles me that there may be some commercialization of first responder. The network that was supposedly dedicated to first responders is now being leveraged to sell DirecTV and HBO. But we can't do that. But I digress. I apologize. We have the network, the people, and the functionality to enable great mission outcomes for first responders. We went through that at great lengths today. There is nothing that AT&T can do to better serve our public safety first responder customers that Verizon can't do better on a better network. It all comes down to the network and the people that engineer and support that network, and certainly the men and women across America, many are here in the room today, that you have long-standing relationships with, that understand your needs and follow through on their commitments. We're thrilled that FirstNet's not mandatory, and we're thrilled that it's using the AT&T commercial network. We like our chances. We're committed to serving. We know it's a competitive marketplace. We're showing up more places than we've ever had before, and we're excited about the future. Again, FirstNet is the tide raising all boats. The technology ecosystem, solution partners, both large and small, companies like Verizon are going to make a big difference, I think, to the lives of our first responders, to the communities that they serve. And we're very much looking forward to how this all plays out. We know today we've done okay, but tomorrow, we'll do better, and we're excited about the opportunity.
All right, with that, I've completed all of my prepared questions. I'm going to turn it over to you for a couple of final thoughts and open it up to the room for questions.
Sure, we've got a video that talks a little bit deeper about how 5G is enabled. We want to play that for you before you depart today. But we do have a microphone in the center of the room here. If any of you in the audience have any questions that you want to ask in front of a recorded in a recorded room for public record, please step right up. If you can introduce yourself.
Hi, my name's Tom Morris. I'm with the Snohomish County Sheriff's Office. Probably our biggest communication challenge in recent memory is the OSO slide, March 22nd of 14, when 43 people died. The Frontier Communications fiber cable was severed during that slide. Verizon Communications didn't go down. I believe it's called a microwave backhaul, allowed the communications to continue, but data was quickly overwhelmed because the only way people were able to get updates on what was happening was through Facebook and social media and things of that nature. A couple of days later, Verizon was able to add some frequencies, which helped, and you guys brought in a trailer with a tower to the city of Darrington, which increased communications there. So my question for you is on a couple of things that you said. 85% of your towers have generator backup. How are you prioritizing which 85% that is? Is that a rural, you know, is that based on the amount of coverage that's available in the area, or are you looking at more rural areas for those?
I'll grab that one. So I think our desire would be to have 100% generator penetration. It's an expensive investment, of course, but practically we can't. And there are some cell site locations, I think about a metropolitan area where we have cell sites on the side of a building or on the top of a skyscraper. We can't get a generator there. There are permitting issues, there are safety issues. It's not realistic. So often the network engineers, of course, look at the footprint and understand where can we practically, where can we legally do this, as well as increasingly as the network has become more densely built out with more cell sites covering the same geographic area, frankly, the dependence on even just one cell site starts to go down. So we're able to be even smarter, frankly, about the way we invest generator resources to say, maybe if we have 3 or 4 cell sites covering the Orange County Convention Center, maybe not all of them need a generator. You know, if one of them went down, we still have coverage, we still have adequate capacity. So I think there's an element there where it's smart decision making about investments and not frivolous.
Yeah, I've always been told that it usually comes down to permitting and access via the landlord, whether or not we are able to get a generator. But the situation you described, sir, was a fiber cut. That was a generator would not have addressed that. Generators are there when there's no commercial power, and we've got the refueling and the capacity to bring in more. But with a fiber cut, it's terrific. You understand that the microwave backhaul was utilized to get that connection. Those are the capabilities that we have today. I think we've got one of those spots down at our booth. Am I wrong? We've got one of those. It's called the satellite pico cell on a trailer. But that was 2014. In 2018 now, with that same satellite microwave backhaul and the same refueling of generators, you now have the access to better priority and preemption capabilities. So your agency in 2018, despite a high demand on the network, would have had priority and preemption capabilities to get in front of all those commercial users you were competing with.
And one follow-up question on that is, if priority and preemption are eliminating commercial users from that, what happens to people in a rural area such as that, where the only information, news, and whatnot that they're getting? Because as police agencies continue to rely more heavily on social media to provide news and updates to their, to the public that we serve, if we're operating in an area and it completely preempts all of their access, how do they then receive those news updates on Facebook?
It's a great question, and thank you for your business and long-standing relationship with Verizon. I want Nick and Anna to comment on the likelihood or the necessity to actually enable preemption. It's a word that's thrown out a lot, but the actual use case with which it will be implemented is very slim.
Yeah, I'll let you. I'll put that into perspective. So we actually tested our preemption capabilities during the Rose Parade in California this year. And it was an event with over 400,000 people attending. And as the parade went through, not a single call, not a single connection required the invoking of preemption to enable first responders to connect. So that is just puts it into perspective how unlikely or how rare it is to invoke a preemption mechanism because the capacity of the network is there to support more than first responders on the scene. Do you want to?
There's been a terrific amount of innovation and technology enhancements even since 2014 as it relates to spectrum allocation and leveraging multiple cell sites, and this is a great industry and it continues to evolve, and even 2014 is almost a lifetime ago as it relates to the capabilities of the network. But I'm glad we were able to help, that's for sure.
Yeah, and I think the other thing point there, and certainly you can make your way to the microphone, don't let me stop you, is the dynamic nature of the cell phones that exist on the network and how they ping the network, right? So the idea that a network would be preemption eligible all the time for an extended period of time would be very, very, very rare. And in those situations, the amount of data needed to sync a social media or sync text messages can still be done kind of in a ad hoc way, right? So unless you're completely jammed the network with voice phone calls, it's going to be dynamic enough in those network environments to enable at least data to get through in some small bites. So I don't think we're going to be in the situation. We've done a lot of tests to make sure that we're not in the situation to completely remove all consumers from the network, because we do realize how important the data connectivity is. And then the Bob's team coming in to restore network connectivity and capacity is incredibly important too. So.
George Rimmer, Hewlett Packard Enterprise. Thank you for allowing me to come up and speak. One, I'd like to say I've been a Verizon customer for a long time. My wife, she's that 3-letter word. And when you travel rural America, Verizon's the only one that has service. So when you're in Alabama driving through Jasper on 78/20, she doesn't have service, but I do. And there's a lot of places in Florida, so that's why I keep Verizon. That's one thing I want to say. The other is when you talk about preemption, so back when 9/11 happened, I worked for a company called Altel, which you all acquired. And it was amazing at how much of a shift that there was, right? So you have a large partner ecosystem that's out there where it can take over some of the slack, even if something happens to your infrastructure. So that's another thing to keep in mind. My question, though, is more about where are you at on the intelligent video analytics that you showed? What's the use cases today that you're doing, and where are you going in the future?
Yes, that's a great point, and I appreciate that feedback on the coverage. We didn't pay you for that, so thank you. So video analytics. So we've been involved in video over our network for a long time. Last year, 2 years ago, we announced a service called Intelligent Video. And so we're working with partner to do basic video analytics on standard streaming cameras. And so the idea is to not stream in high definition across the 4G LTE network at all times, but to push only on certain triggers. So we've put video surveillance cameras in parking lots, on secure areas. We've worked with some very interesting customers that we put video surveillance cameras up that really just look for cars entering a parking lot or people walking by a certain box. We've actually used it internally on some of our own secure sites for cell towers. And so it only pushes video when a certain trigger is met, when a person enters a screen or when a car enters a certain area. And so that reduces the impact on the network. It also reduces the amount of time someone has spent in a dispatch center watching video that doesn't move, right? And so it triggers on those two things. What we're bringing out later this year into next is something called citywide surveillance. So it brings that to scale. So it actually, instead of one camera that has those analytics, it goes across the entire city. And so you can put multiple cameras up and connect the two of them together, or the three, or dozens of those together, be able to see how the video interacts with one another. And then you can go at a moment's notice, so in real time, to be able to see analytics based on, a certain car or a certain person. But also you can rewind time now and be able to say, I only want to see all of the white pickup trucks that turned right at that intersection where I had my surveillance camera. And then you can immediately remove all other time aspects over an 8-12-hour period and pull out just those white pickup trucks that turned right at that corner, because that's what your witness saw. And those kind of things are incredibly powerful for detectives, for first responders, to be able to see without having to watch 8 hours of video to try to find that exact time, because we know how important time is for first responders and for law enforcement. So really, it's where we've been is kind of very simple analytics on what's in the video frame to tying it to a broader area, and then adding in AI to be able to see what else is going on in the frame. The other thing that we're adding in, though, in that video surveillance aspect is real-time situational awareness around that from social inputs and from other sensors. So being able to see what's been posted on Twitter at a same time, and if the picture's been posted to Twitter, can we see what's in that picture based on artificial intelligence of knowing what can be in that picture and what, say, black smoke looks like and why that's an anomaly. And being able to tie sensors together from the video surveillance that we have in cities to the social media feeds that we get input, and then other sensors like CBRNE sensors that we have across the city, tying those sensors together, utilizing our artificial intelligence are some of the things that we're doing in that area. So appreciate the question.
Nick, that's a great segue. We're going to show you a 5G video and ultimately what 5G will enable when it comes to video analytics and intelligence. Before I show the video, again, I want to thank all the participants here in this session. To our customers, thank you for your trust and longstanding confidence in Verizon. Believe me, we will continue to be the best provider in the segment to support your needs. And certainly to our partners in the room, thank you for helping to enable your technologies and solutions on America's best and most reliable network. Our trade show booth is still open downstairs, and we look forward to extended conversations. But let me leave you this now with a 5G view of the future.
We believe 5G is an exponential improvement to what we have today. This year is the year that we're going to offer a commercial product to our customers.
In millimeter wave, we have a massive amount of bandwidth.
We're seeing testing speeds of over 1 gigabit per second, as well as an extremely low latency.
It's really high frequency, so everybody thinks it doesn't go very far, but it's a really big pipe, and so that's what allows you to gain the super fast speeds. We're here on top of this parking garage. We're 3,000 feet away from our radio node. The cool thing about this is we did not move the radio node. It's pointing down to serve the customers in that area. But here, even 3,000 feet away, we're still getting gig speeds. So we've driven about 1/3 mile away from the radio node. It's located over there behind the trees. We're still getting very good speeds, even though we have foliage in between. Our radio node is tucked in behind those apartments over there. The signal is actually bouncing off of the buildings. Even at this distance with non-line of sight, we're still getting almost a gig. We're here doing our in-building tests. This right here is our CPE equipment. Going through the wall, over here, also through the window, and our radio is way out there at the tower. And we're still getting really good speeds and signal.
Essentially, what beamforming does is compensate for any signal loss by switching automatically to the strongest beam. The selection of the beam is done instantaneously, so you get really solid coverage using millimeter wave spectrum.
What we've learned over the past year is that the millimeter wave signal is much more resilient than anyone's expected.
This is going out to customers and it's got the Verizon name behind it, so it has to be reliable and robust. Right now, we're only using half of our spectrum. I'm excited to get this build out completed and unleash the full potential of 5G.
Panel, thank you. And audience, thank you. Have safe travel back home. Again, we appreciate your business and look forward to future engagements. Have a great rest of the conference. Thank you.